Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight here on YouTube for our online seminar program. I'm Darcy Furness, the nutritionist here in the South Surrey location, and we're working hard to keep you safe during COVID. So I'm delighted to say that we're now able to do our one-on-one meetings once again. And if you'd like to take advantage of this service, you can reach out to your nearest Choices Markets and get in touch with your nutritionist there to find out when she works to take advantage of this. And to stay in touch with all things healthy, check out our website at choicesmarkets.com and sign up to get our nutrition newsletter or our monthly newsletter. You get all the sale dates, lots of exciting articles, recipes, and you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. So a couple of housekeeping details tonight. We have a nutrition coupon that we're going to be sending you, and this is good for $10 off a $50 purchase. So about 8:30 tonight, you're going to get another email from us, which has a survey embedded in it. And in that email, we're going to ask you for your mailing address so we can send you this coupon. For the seminar tonight, if you have questions, we'd love to get them from you. You can use the chat function in the YouTube screen. And to do that, you'll need to sign into your own YouTube account. So fear not if you don't have a YouTube account. If any questions do go unanswered by the end of the seminar, you can contact Dr. Wiley through her website, which is at drmirandawiley.com. And I will actually put that in the chat for you so you'll have that. She practices in person through Cena Pharmacy and Health Center in Vancouver, and she's also pleased to offer new patients a 15-minute complimentary meet and greet if you'd like to explore naturopathic medicine further and see if it's a good addition to your health toolbox. And now that we're live streaming to Choices Markets YouTube channel, you'll be able to come back and watch this video again. And we've had lots of multiple views on several of our videos, so that's a good thing to know. About Dr. Wiley, Miranda began her career in natural health at 13 years old when she had a summer job at a local health food store. By age 14, she was decided on a career in naturopathic medicine. Her initial explorations into herbs, nutrition, and the human body were self-guided and ultimately led her towards a BSc in human nutrition at UBC. She later graduated from the Boucher Institute of Naturopathic Medicine, also here in BC. Tonight, Dr. Wiley is going to educate us on just how our gut affects our overall mood and immune system and our health generally, and what role probiotics play in these processes. So we're going to get started. I'll be leaving the screen now, and I'll be popping back when the seminar is over to answer any questions. So let's please join me in welcoming Miranda.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Darcy. Welcome, everyone. I really do appreciate you showing up and spending this evening with us. As Darcy said, we're going to be talking about gut health, stress, and immunity. They are not three separate talks. This is one subject with, three different arms. It is being sponsored by Renew Life. So of course, I'll be talking about their products. I've been using the products for years with great success in my patient practice. So today we're going to talk about how and why the gut is the foundation of health. Hippocrates, reputed as the father of medicine, said that all disease begins in the gut. And for the most part, he's quite correct. And we'll discuss why that's important. We'll talk about the microbiome, which I feel like most people are, fairly familiar with at this point. But just to get us all kind of on the same page and discussing that, we'll look at factors that affect the microbiome. Then we're going to step sideways for a little bit, look at stress and immunity and that relationship. Then which probiotic strains we want for immune support, for mood health, and keeping that balance and kind of bringing that digestive piece back into the conversation. Really important that I don't forget fiber. So they put it in nice big bold letters for me. How to heal intestinal permeability. So if we're looking at, the gut being the source of all, degenerative or long-term diseases, probiotics are going to be part of that. How we eat, how we chew, how we look after ourselves. But if there's a leaky gut, if there's inflammation in the digestive tract, that's something that we're going to need to address. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then just give some nice, quick and easy immune support strategies so we can stay as healthy as possible as we get into these dark winter months ahead of us. So the gut really is the foundation of health. Patients come in with mental emotional disorders, and I'm asking them about their diet and their digestion. People come in with pain, plantar fasciitis, and it comes back to, okay, well, what are you eating? How are you eating it? What's your digestive process like? So I can get a lot of information just by asking about diet and digestion, and it generally will ripple out into skin and hair health or UTIs or whatever their primary concerns might be. I always have to start in the gut. So we're going to look at the gut, brain, and the immune connection. So we have this gut-associated lymphoid tissue, which is quite a mouthful, so we just call it the GALT. And that represents almost 70% of the entire immune system. And the reason it's so concentrated in the intestinal tract is that's where we're the most vulnerable to attack. If we think about our bodies as, a temple and my DNA and my important self that I want to keep alive, and then all of the potential dangers out there in the world, we have our soldiers, we have our immune system that are there to protect us. Along our skin, we've got multiple layers of epidermal tissue, dermal tissue. We really need to be poked by a thorn or scratched by an animal for that to be exposed and for the immune system to get engaged, and we worry about infection. We have a bit more vulnerability in our respiratory tree, but still we have multiple layers there to protect us. We want to keep that moist, and be wary of the bacteria and viruses that could affect our respiratory tract. Genitourinary tract, also a little bit vulnerable. But if we look through our digestive tract, and we think of it as like very much internal, and yet we're kind of a big donut. We're a big glorified, we have a tube running through us that is external tissue against our outside environment. Through our mouth, our stomach, when we get into the small intestine where we need to absorb our nutrients, we got to let the fats and the proteins and the vitamins, the minerals, the carbs, everything pass through. We're really vulnerable. We become down to just one cell thick. So one cell of tissue dividing us, our DNA, our organs, our blood, our ever important parts, and then the outside environment of food, bacteria, waste products, toxins, anything else that we've ingested by mouth or that our body is trying to eliminate. So it makes sense that we would concentrate our immune system along the digestive tract. So that's a really, really tight relationship, digestion and immune function. The gut is very much the foundation of the health, as it's also home to the enteric nervous system. Enteric just means digestive tract. And that contains 100 million nerve cells all along our GI tract, from mouth right through to the rectum. And so if we look at our brain, which has about 100 million nerve cells, and then our gut, the gut has often been dubbed the second brain. They use a lot of the same neurotransmitters. They use a lot of the same communication devices, and we have the same or similar numbers of neural networks in our brain, central nervous system, as we do in our gut, in our enteric nervous system. And that system includes neural circuits that are helping to control the motor functions along our GI tract, local blood flow so we can absorb nutrients and heal any damage that might be done, our mucosal secretions and transport, making sure it stays moist and lubricated. We're trapping any potential invaders or pathogens. And it also helps to modulate our immune and our endocrine or hormone system functions. So lots happening in our digestive tract. And the gut and the nervous system, so our two brains, is a two-way street of communication. There are a few pathways they use. I think the most relevant is probably the vagus nerve, which is cranial nerve number 10. So it's a nerve that starts from our brain and it travels down sort of along our neck, around our heart and lungs, and down to the digestive tract. And it's bringing information from our brain to our GI tract to make sure that it works well, but it's also receiving signals from the digestive system and bringing them back up to the brain. And oftentimes people can really get their heads around that if they think about, getting some bad news and immediately feeling nauseous or having to run to the toilet, or, the stress of travel and then they're constipated for 4 days. Just so we have that connection between brain stress and gut stress. So if we understand that correlation, then that helps us to realize why our gut health is so paramount over our overall immune health and hormone health and psychological health, every part of it. So talking about the microbiome, this is considered one of the most significant discoveries in medicine. It was 200 something years ago that Louis Pasteur looked down the microscope, and saw, single-celled organisms floating around in the liquid, and was like, oh my goodness, illness is conferred by these teeny tiny little things that we can't see, this invisible world all around us. And now we know that many of them are actually really beneficial to our health. In the 1990s, science set out to unravel human DNA and discover what every part did, what this little segment of DNA codes for that protein has this effect in the body. So we had the Human Genome Project. It lasted over a decade into the early 2000s, but then they did it. They'd completely mapped the human genome. And we have these scientists sitting on some pretty incredible machinery going, okay, well, job done, now what? And someone had the idea of, well, why don't we start looking at the microbes that we host, the ones that are living in our mouth, that are living on our skin, living in our digestive tract. Why don't we learn about them? So we've had this explosion of understanding since early sort of Y2K, so the last 20 years or so, into what these microbes do and how their DNA is impacting our health. So we're still very much tip of the iceberg. There's ongoing research and understanding coming out, but we're learning a whole lot more, which is really exciting. I think it's a really exciting time to be becoming aware of the microbiome. So our body contains trillions of bacteria, as well as viruses and fungi. We have about 4 pounds living in our digestive tract. It's all bacterial mass, or viruses and fungi as well, but so does microbiome. And yet our immune system isn't attacking it. It's accepting that this diverse colony of microbes is symbiotic. It's helpful for us. We should be a good host. We're generally 37 degrees Celsius, steady supply of water, of food. We're keeping this environment, this home, pretty steady. And the microbes are often appreciative of that and working with us to keep us healthy. So we have this relationship where we're nice, warm, healthy hosts, and they help to keep us to be nice, warm, healthy hosts. And certainly there are bacteria and viruses and fungi that are associated with disease, but we're learning more and more about the value of the ones that are extremely important for our health, and that a lack of them can be another source of disease. So what exactly do these microbes do? I'm going to start actually by looking at the picture. This is the small intestine. So we can see all these sort of brownish finger-like projections. So if our small intestine was smooth, that's all the surface area we would have to absorb nutrients. It's not enough. By making it undulated and having all of that increased surface area, we now have more space to absorb fats, proteins, carbs, vitamins, minerals, and everything else that we need for health. And then the colorful little speckles all over it, that would be part of our microbiome. It's pretty thin in the small intestine. The large intestine, we wouldn't be able to see the cells. It's just this rainforest of microbes teeming with life. But here we have that relationship between us and our microbiome. So generally, not harmful for us, actually incredibly helpful. Some of them are making vitamins that we can't do. We don't have the genetic code to do that, but they're able to convert our food products into vitamins that we can then use. Some of them are breaking down our food, so working with the enzymes that our stomach and small intestine and pancreas are secreting, working with our gastric juices so that we can extract more nutrients out of our food so that we can survive and give them a nice, warm, healthy home for a long term. Some of them are teaching our immune systems how to distinguish dangerous invaders from innocuous compounds. So we've got, a brand new baby coming into the world. Some of those microbes that's exposed to, that start to colonize, are going to work with this naive immune system that hasn't seen anything ever except the inside of a uterus, and start teaching it good from bad and helping to create those associations. So it's part of our immune development, part of whether we're going to be more prone to allergies or not, or an autoimmune condition or not. So we have a big relationship there between the immune system and the digestive microbiome. And some of them are helping to produce anti-inflammatory compounds. And we're going to inflammation is going to come up a lot this evening about the role that it plays in affecting our stress levels and ultimately decreasing our overall health. So when we have these anti-inflammatory compounds being produced by the bacteria living in our gut, that's good for us. That's a big boon to our health long term. And some of them help to fight off other disease-causing microbes, which means our immune system doesn't have to do the work. So we let them help to keep us alive, and we in turn should be good to them. Our microbiome is acquired at birth. So historically, births were all vaginal, extreme Julius Caesar type things. And as the baby is coming through mom's vaginal canal, it's literally getting smeared with her microbiome. So all of those microbes that are living in the vaginal canal are now like going up baby's nose and its ears and down the mouth and getting in all the nooks and crannies of their newborn baby skin. And some would colonize. This is a nice environment. And some would be like, nope, this isn't the right place for me. Move on. But as they get exposed again down the road and the digestive tract is changed in pH, maybe those microbes will like it a little bit more. So it's going to increase in complexity over time. And depending on which study you look at and I've read anything from the microbiome being established by 4 months old to 4 years old. So we don't have a firm number at this point, but we know that it's constantly developing in those early years of life. And these are microorganisms that are found on the outside of our body, so skin, hair, under a nail, along our eyelashes, and all inside our body. So our mouth, nose, respiratory tract, urogenital tract, and digestive tract. We used to think that a mother's womb was completely sterile, right? Completely plugged off, no bacteria can get in there. There is now emerging evidence that babies might come into some contact with microbes while still in the womb. And that, I think, is going to be a new field that we'll learn more about as research progresses, but that might be happening. Obviously, not all babies now are born vaginally. Depending on where you live, it could be 30% or more being cesarean birth. And that changes a baby's microbiome quite significantly. When they look at the poop of a baby born by vaginal, they look at the microbes in there a couple of weeks later, and they are predominantly digestive microbes. When they look at babies who are born by cesarean section, and they look at their poop a couple of weeks later, it's predominantly the bacteria that are found on the skin, on the X side of the body, whether it's mom's skin bacteria or the nurses or the doctors or other people's getting on. So it changes the microbiome. And that's okay. Both of my babies were born by cesarean. Knowledge is power. We're now able to help support them in their microbiome development through understanding, the benefits of the vaginal canal. So vaginal birth where possible, but really a healthy living baby is the ultimate goal. And if that means a cesarean birth, then so be it. We'll just help them on the other side. When we get into this microbiome diversity, a microbial diversity, the more diverse we are, that is generally associated with greater health. When we have very limited microbes, when we have tens of thousands rather than hundreds of thousands and hundreds of thousands rather than millions or trillions, then we start seeing more disease processes. So we're still learning, is it the diversity or is it just those other strains that are coming in, the ones that are missing that were really beneficial, or is it really having just that diverse species where no one is predominant? There's a smattering of every kind, and that seems to be the most beneficial. So again, more research coming out as we go. As we grow, our gut microbiome begins to diversify. We're picking up more. Babies are putting everything in their mouth. They're exposing themselves to the environment. They're exposing themselves to antigens, potential allergic triggers, and their immune system and their microbiome are saying, nope, this thing's okay. You don't have to freak out with grass pollen or cat dander. Other immune systems might say, okay, let's take note of that one. That could be dangerous. They're sampling everything by mouth. And we try to get them not to do it, but it's actually a really normal part of infant development. And then we become more robust and we've got our microbial diversity. And then as we age, it starts to slip again. It goes down on the other side. So we see this fluctuation in microbiome to a degree from birth to death, and how that affects our digestion of food, the immune system, the central nervous system, and other processes. So if we're looking to keep our diversity as broad as possible, we want to look at the different factors. So the type of birth, again, vaginal versus cesarean, we've discussed that. Breastfeeding versus formula fed. Breast, definitely best. Mother Nature is providing exactly what baby needs in terms of fats, proteins, carbs, vitamins, minerals, the prebiotics that help the bacteria in baby's gut to develop. And breast milk composition changes as a baby ages. So if you have someone donating milk and they have a newborn baby, you don't want to be giving that to a year-old baby or vice versa. They're going to have different qualities within them. So it's really clever. Our bodies do stuff that we don't even fully understand. That said, if a woman can't breastfeed or a baby can't latch, or we're looking at an adoption scenario, that's okay. We have this wonderful life-giving stuff called formula, and that will help to keep babies alive. And formulas are getting better and better every year as they try to understand and mimic the benefits of breastfeeding. So I think most, if not all, formulas at this point now contain GOS, so galacto-oligosaccharides. These are prebiotic sugars that have been shown to help support the growth and development, to help the microbiome that is still emerging in an infant's gut to bloom and thrive and multiply and diversify. So formulas are adding those in now to help baby who can't get breast milk or who needs to supplement with formulas, doing a bit of both. Our microbiome is affected by our country of origin. And people who've traveled extensively probably know this quite well. You're at home, you've spent however many years or decades growing up in that environment, your digestion's pretty solid. Go to another part of the world, digestion might not be quite as solid. There might be some funny tummy episodes, some food poisoning, some traveler's diarrhea. So we get used to our own environments. And when we leave that environment, things can be a bit awkward as we settle in. The diet for sure. So the bacteria can only eat what we feed them. So if all a person is eating is, broccoli, carrots, brown rice, and chicken, then they're going to be encouraging the growth of those microbes that like to eat broccoli, carrots, brown rice, and chicken. If someone is routinely setting down to this huge, wonderfully colorful salad here, they're going to get a big variety of fibers and nutrients that in turn is going to help feed a big variety of microbes in the gut. So they're all going to get a little bit more to eat and have that diversity. So we're going to talk about, expanding our dietary repertoire and going outside of our comfort zones. That might also be part of why the microbiome declines as we age, which is the final point here. In my grandmother's last few years, it was a lot of tea and toast and maybe a biscuit and maybe some cooked carrots, mashed potato. Her diet became very, very limited, and that in turn is going to affect microbial diversity. Medications, antibiotics are the obvious one. As antibiotics in our meat and in our dairy, there's, I'm going to jump to toxicity here and see, we don't know what this guy's spraying on what looks like to be kale, but that could well be affecting our microbial diversity in the same way that an antibiotic might. This salad might be completely laden with herbicides and pesticides. So you're getting some health-giving measures, but also some toxins that the body's going to have to work against. So not everything is a complete black or white. There might be some trade-offs to be made. I would still encourage the salad, even if it wasn't organic. Obviously, organic would be preferred. So we do the best we can every step of the way. And then stress levels. And we're going to be talking about that in the next few slides. That's kind of a central part of this discussion, which is how stress impacts the immunity. So if we're looking at our immune system as being housed in the digestive tract, this is how we're bringing in that triangle, that third leg of the stool. We've got digestion, immune function, and now stress. Stress definition is when something happens to us that forces our bodies to change in a particular way. So we go into a very, very cold environment and we're going to start shivering and getting red cheeks and trying to warm up our system. It's a change. It's an external stimulus that's requiring a response by our body. When we're talking about emotional stress, generally we're talking more about going beyond our ability to cope. When people say, "Oh, I'm so stressed out," they don't usually mean, "Oh, I just went to somewhere that's really hot and I had to sweat a bit more." But technically that's what we're talking about. Stress is a physiological change against our environment. So if our environment is loaded and toxic and causing us to react and respond all the time, eventually we can dwindle down and be a lot less robust. So stress is always going to be a part of life. Let's accept that there will always be curveballs. But how do we deal with them? How resilient are we? How well can we adapt to that stress? How well can we deal with it? Is it a molehill or is it a mountain? So we're going to look at our own stress support and response. But sometimes, big bad things happen and we need to be able to deal with that. And if it's been happening at the end of a long period of big bad things happening, we're probably not going to deal with it very well. We need to support our systems. So short-term stress might be a final exam. It might be, your dog getting hit by a car, something that is a blip with sort of a finite end to it. Long-term, taking care of an ailing loved one with a prolonged illness. Obviously, the pandemic shows up. The final exam is a short-term stress, but maybe as part of a 4-year undergraduate course, then that's going to become more of a long-term stress with peaks and valleys. And our body adapts to stress and external changes with hormone response. And one of the key hormones to consider right now is cortisol. We get stressed. A car cuts you off in traffic. A dog leaps over the fence and starts barking at you. We're going to get stressed. We're going to have increased heart rate. We have a flood of cortisol in our system. Cortisol is the primary long-term stress hormone, also a short-term stress hormone, and it has a direct effect on our immune system. So much so that it is the basis of many medications. If someone has asthma, they're probably going to get a corticosteroid puffer that's going to reduce inflammation in the airways. so that they can breathe again. If they have eczema, they might get a hydrocortisone cream that's going to reduce that redness and inflammation. Everything feels better. So it suppresses that inflammatory response. And that can be really helpful when what we need to do right now is fight that bear or run away from it. We don't want to have to deal with infection or inflammation at that point. But if it goes on long term, either our body systems can adapt, so that boy that cries wolf, constant stimulus of cortisol, or the adrenals, which have been pumping out so much, trying to keep us alive, eventually just start not being able to pump out as much. And we hit adrenal insufficiency and less cortisol being produced. So we'll see changes in the system, depending on short-term versus long-term and how resilient we are and what we're doing to manage our stress levels. But cortisol does everything from down here, stimulating the formation of glucose, because if we're about to fight or flight, we need lots of sugar available for our muscles to function well. But it's going to decrease the amino acid uptake by our muscles. So if this is happening long-term, eventually our muscles can atrophy and become smaller and weaker. We sort of become shriveled shells of ourselves at the end of long-term stress. Bone formation decreases. We need those minerals to be available for the fight or flight response. Part of that is because we're also not absorbing as many minerals through the intestine when there's high cortisol in the system. We might see changes in gastric acid secretion. Empty the stomach, don't need to deal with digestion right now. We're just going to push it all through, deal with that threat. I'm going to skip over here to the kidneys. We might see, urination changes. The brain one is interesting though. When we have higher levels of cortisol in our system, it's working with our brain to help us remember events and condition us for future times when we may come up with that event again. So if you're giving a speech at a wedding and you're really nervous, you've got that cortisol flooding through your system, and then you give the talk and it goes really well and people are laughing and they're crying and they're applauding, that is going to help you create a memory that this is okay, I can do this. And then next time you're going to give that talk or talk at somebody else's wedding or do a public speech, then you're going to have that reinforced notion of, okay, I can do this. If that bombs, your brain is going to pick up on that memory too. And then next time, like, okay, I should probably take some notes or have some cue cards or rehearse it a few times. But cortisol is helping our memories prepare us for the next time we might come up with that event again. And keep in mind, there's always going to be stress. There's always going to be curveballs. The more we learn from these experiences, the better we are at adapting to them down the road and not having as big a cortisol spike down the road. So short bursts, we have that cortisol in our system, our inflammation goes down, our immune system goes down. If you're about to get eaten by a bear, it doesn't matter if you're fighting off the common cold. So let's just get rid of that and deal with this immediate threat. Then we can pick up later and we can fix that long term. Long term, if we stop producing enough cortisol, which is our good inflammation suppressor, then we can start having a lot more rampant inflammation in the system. And that inflammation can affect our muscles and joints, and we have a harder time sleeping because things are achy. It can affect our digestive tracts because now our digestive tract is inflamed, and that's affecting how we absorb our nutrients or break down our food. So we want to kind of really keep inflammation in its place. Use it when needed, let it go when we're done with it. Cortisol, stress management, immune function, digestion, all tying into that piece. With stress and immunity, we know that when we're stressed, when cortisol goes up, lymphocytes and white blood cells go down, right? So we see that suppression and inflammation, but many people also resonate with that time when you were stressed out for a long period, you got through exam period, and then boom, you caught the cold on the other side. You were so good, weeks of exams, I was all good, the next day sick, where you start getting a cold sore. We're not able to keep the little viruses at bay anymore, and they flare up. If we can manage our stress, manage our cortisol, manage our inflammation, we have a better chance at withstanding infections that come around and avoiding the cold and avoiding the flare-ups of cold sores or other infections that might be around. Depression and anxiety, again, we have a bit of a catch-22 on this one. High stress levels or prolonged stress levels can definitely cause depression and anxiety. We're seeing that a lot this year as we make our way through the pandemic and head into our second pandemic winter. This time last year, everyone's asking about immune support, and all the blogs online were about, vitamin C and vitamin D and how much do you need. And now the focus is really on mental health. Our immune systems will do great things if we're feeling supported and connected and in that human tribe. So a lot more focus now on mental support and depression, anxiety. When we have depression and anxiety, we also then tend to see higher levels of inflammation. They use a lot of the same chemical messengers. So little things that go around and tell from cell to cell, hey, there's some inflammation, there's an infection, there's something going on. One of them that spurts inflammation makes us feel depressed. You're like, oh no, I'm getting a cold. Or another one makes us feel anxious with, oh, I can't get a cold now. No, not now. No, please, not a cold sore right now. So there are direct chemical messengers associated with both of those. Long-term, sustained, high levels of inflammation, that often points to an overworked, overtired immune system that cannot properly protect you. Got to manage our stress. How can we use probiotics to help with that? Probiotic, pro for bio-life. So World Health Organization defines them as live microorganisms, not dead, which when administered in adequate amounts, not fairy dusting, confer a health benefit on the host. You take them and they don't change your system, it's not a probiotic. So in general, they support digestive and immune health. And this we've known for a long time. As Darcy said, I started in a health food store. I was 13 years old, more than 3 decades ago. And it was like probiotics, digestion, immune function. Those are the 2 areas. They can have different appearances. Bifido is bifid, so it's got that sort of Y-shaped double branch. Anything that says coccus is going to have these little balls, so lactococcus or streptococcus. The propiona, the lactobacilli that we're seeing more rods shaped. So there's so many of them. They look different. They have different qualities and aspects. How to choose when there's so many on the shelf, and it can be a bit overwhelming. You want to look at your culture count. So a probiotic, which contains billions, that would be an adequate amount of live cultures per serving, will help you to get more of those friendly microbes to support your healthy gut. So you're looking for colony forming units or CFUs. Multiple strains. Again, diversity is the bomb. That's what we really need. So we're going to get as much variety in there as possible. So looking at the number of strains. The delivery system, Renew Life uses DR caps, which stands for delayed release caps. So they're acid resistant. They should survive that really acidic environment in our stomachs that they can open up in the small and large intestines and nourish our digestive health. We want to look at the potency at the time of expiration. So if you buy a Renew Life product that says 50 billion, look at the expiry date. That's when it's 50 billion. If you're buying it 6 months in advance or a year in advance or 18 months in advance, it's going to have that many more billion in it. So looking at that slow attrition, nothing lasts forever. We hit expiry. That's when we're seeing the number on the box. Storage, there's 2 options. There's refrigerated probiotics, people who take them at the same time every day, and people who are okay with soy and dairy. Both of those potential food allergens are in the refrigerated products. The shelf-stable products are better for people who like to put everything in a little pill popper and just take everything all at the same time. But they're also soy and dairy free. So anyone who has those food sensitivities, we're automatically looking at the shelf-stable. All Renew Life products are gluten-free, so that we don't have to worry about where they're living in that one. And then the targeted formulas. This is where it gets kind of fun. So you start pulling into some of the new science that's coming out. Some of the formulas have some very strain-specific claims that research was done using this strain and it showed this result. And that's why we chose it and put it in there, because we want to do what the research says and try and get that same result in the customers. So Renew Life has been in Canada since 2002. They're originally an American line. They were founded by a colon hydrotherapist down in, I think, Florida. And as she was cleaning out people's intestinal tracts, she was seeing a lot of undigested food. I was like, people should be taking enzymes more. And she was seeing a surprising number of parasites. And I was like, okay, we really need to support the microbiome there. So it's a full line of quality probiotics, essential fatty acids, which helps reduce inflammation, digestive aids, fiber, enzymes, and internal cleanses, and that have all been empowering people to elevate their quality of life through better digestive health. Since 2003, they started winning the Alive Awards. So most people are familiar with that Alive magazine. The Alive Awards happens, I think might be twice a year or once a year. But between 2003 until 2020, when this slide was created, in that 17-year period, Renew Life had won over 98 Alive Awards. So that averages out to 5 or 6 awards every year. So consumers are voting on that, retailers are voting on that. People love this line, they feel the benefit on it. And the Alive Awards have been showcasing the best of the best in natural health for more than 20 years. So we're not going to touch, we're going to talk about these ones. So here we have the immune support, which is 30 billion bacteria. So again, we're looking at the number of colonies, 5 different probiotic strains. Where'd my cursor go? There we go. 5 probiotic strains, and it has a study claim because one of those probiotic strains was researched. We know that it does actually have positive effect on immune health during times of stress. The mood and stress formula also has a study claim, 6 probiotic strains, 30 billion. 2 of those microbes were shown to help support mental health. The critical care is in here because it is the best-selling formula. 50 billion, nice sort of middle of the road. People feel pretty good on that. Differences in the formula, 10 strains in the refrigerated, and I can tell this is refrigerated because I can see the full sun. 12 probiotic strains in the shelf stable, and because it's that blue bar across the top, that's saying that it doesn't require refrigeration. And then we see the dairy-free and the gluten-free sign down here. And then the kids' formulas. There's a Daily Boost probiotic, which was studied, the Throat Defense formula, which was studied, and the Flora Baby, which also was studied. So talk about those. We have these clinically studied strains. We've got some good research backing them up. In the immune support formula, the key player is the Bifidobacterium bifidum R0071, getting very specific and scientific in naming that. So bifido, broad spectrum, it's just saying what they look like, kind of that Y-shaped. The bifidum is a subset of the bifidobacteria, and the R0071 is one very specific strain. For the mood and stress formula, we're looking at a Lactobacillus helveticus and a Bifidobacterium longum. And then for the kids' Daily Boost and Throat Defense formulas, we're seeing Bifidobacterium animalis subspecies lactis UABLA12 and Streptococcus salivarius K12, which stands for kindergarten to 12. So it's kind of nice when they give, weird numbers and letters, but you understand why. So kindergarten to 12 is because it was studied in children who were getting repeat strep throat. And I'm going to go through each of these individually, so I don't need to spend time on that slide. The immune support formula, they actually studied 3 strains, 3 strains and a placebo. So the immune support formula, this one has the one strain that really showed to help. So they had university students. They're like, let's think of a stressed out population, young adults who are in school trying to get good grades. And every day for 6 weeks, they had a questionnaire to fill out. And they said whether, on a scale of 1 to 10 or scale of 1 to 5, I forget. They had a scale. How bad is your throat? How congested is your nose? Do you have a headache? So they went through 9 key cold symptoms, and they had to rate the severity of their symptoms on a number scale. And then the other group was getting a different probiotic. The other group was getting a different probiotic. The other group was getting a placebo. The other 2 probiotics didn't fare. They didn't change anything based on the placebo. So let those, learn something, but don't prescribe those ones. But this particular strain, the Bifidobacterium R0071, was shown to decrease the intensity, the frequency, and the duration of upper respiratory infections in stressed adults. So they didn't know what they were taking, but they scored better for that 6-week period and beyond when they were in that stressed out situation. So we know that it helps to reduce the incidence of cold-like symptoms in stressed adults, and that it helps to support intestinal and gastrointestinal health. So great if you're stressed and you don't want to get sick. For this study, they took people who suffer from mental health imbalances or disorders, and they had them fill out the questionnaires that are used in hospitals to assess anxiety, depression, OCD, aggression. I can't think of the right word. Anger. I can't think of the right word. Anyway, so they filled out their questionnaires at the beginning. For 30 days, they took whatever probiotic they were assigned to. And in this one, they had these 2 bacteria together. And at the end of that 30-day period, they had to fill out those questionnaires again. And they saw a decrease in anxiety, depression, hostility was the word I was looking for, OCD symptoms, and somatization. So again, that experience when you get some bad news and you feel it in the gut of, oh my goodness, I'm so stressed out, I have to go to the bathroom and have diarrhea again. That gut to brain, the central nervous system brain to gut brain connection. So the mood and stress formula universally helped to decrease stress-related gastrointestinal complications like nausea and abdominal pain, helps to moderate general feelings of anxiety, and promotes a healthy mood balance. So if that speaks to you, then that could be one to consider. The critical care is mentioned because it is the bestseller and it's won the most awards. Convenient, multi-strain probiotic formula, everyday use. It's kind of like your multi. You're just going to take a little bit of a boost. This is going to give you that nice little well-rounded edge of good bacteria for the system. 50 billion of live bacterial cultures per serving, 30 of the bifido, 20 of the lactobacilli. I like that. I'm leaning more and more towards bifido in my practice as I see more and more gut complaints or inflammatory responses. So lactobacilli have their place, but I think more people are deficient in bifido these days since I run labs on them too. One a day, convenient, daily released capsules or delayed release capsules. So it's going to pass through the acidic environment of the stomach. Quality, purity, potency guaranteed through expiration. No gluten, artificial colors or flavors. The shelf-stable formula with this blue bar at the top. Also no dairy, no soy, and all of Renew Life is non-GMO. Now we get into the kids. With this one, they looked at preschool and school-age children. So they were ages 3 to 18, I think. And they were given these strains on a regular basis or on a daily basis. I forget the length of the trial. I kind of think it was 3 months. And the kids who were taking these 2 specific strains, which is all that's in this, this formula, they're like little sachets. It's kind of a tropical burst. It's like a flavorful powder that you put on your tongue and kind of tastes all sweet and tropical fruity. It helps reduce absenteeism in children because they had, again, reduced frequency, intensity, and illness, and duration of illness. So actually, no, it didn't change the frequency. They were getting sick just as much as their schoolmates, but they were getting better faster and not getting as sick as their schoolmates. They were still getting the illnesses, but they had less absenteeism because they were recovering faster and not getting as sick in the first place. That's right. The throat defense probiotic is interesting. We had kids who were getting recurrent pharyngotonsillitis, so essentially recurrent strep throat. And they gave them the Streptococcus salivarius K12, and that helped to, over a 90-day trial, it was a 90% or more reduction in the frequency of sore throats. These ones are orange flavored. You've got the same 2 of these 3 strains you're getting. I can go up. These 2 strains, along with the Streptococcus salivarius. So this one's orange flavored. You're still promoting a healthy gut flora because again, we've got that immune system connection, but really targeting the kids who are getting sick frequently in the throat. And this is the formula that is nearest and dearest to my heart. This is Flora Baby. The research done on this was done in neonatal intensive care units in over 60 Canadian hospitals. They looked at the last 17 months worth of data, and then for the next 17 months, the babies who were born less than 32 weeks gestation, and my first child was born at 26 weeks gestation, which is why I love this study so much. Those babies were given Flora Baby, and they followed them for the next 17 months. And there was a statistically significant decrease in gastrointestinal illnesses and death. So that's important. These babies come in so young, their digestive tracts haven't fully developed. They're at risk for a really, really deadly gut issue that affects preemies. And Flora Baby was shown to help with that. So supports the intestinal and gastrointestinal health in infants and children, can be taken as early as their first day of life, as indicated by the fact that they were giving it to children who were born who should have still been in utero for another few months. So really excellent research there. And that one is 5 different probiotic strains, mostly bifidobacteria, which is what the early colonizers are. And then it becomes more diverse as we grow. It's a little scoop, little powder. And then on top of the probiotics, they need something to eat. So we want to make sure we don't forget fiber when we're addressing our gut health and trying to therefore support our immune health and our stress management. We need to go to the washroom every day. We need to be eliminating toxins every day, and fiber ties into that. Most food sources of fiber containing both soluble and insoluble. So we like analogies. The soluble is this yellow part. It's going to absorb liquids. It's going to absorb gastrointestinal juices and make things less available for reabsorption by the digestive tract. It's going to hold on to it, carry it out of the system. The green part is insoluble fiber. It's the roughage. It's the stuff that's going to go really cleanse and gently exfoliate the inside of our digestive tracts. So insoluble fiber does not dissolve in water, right? The picture of the flax seeds, you can leave a flax seed in water as long as you want. That hull will still be there. It'll rupture, it'll open up, but it's not going to break down. So it gives bulk to the food, strengthens and tones the muscles of the bowel. They've got something to squeeze against, something to push against. So we're keeping that integrity up there, and helps to sweep the walls of the bowel clean. The soluble fiber is just sort of forming this gel where we then can't reabsorb toxins into our bloodstream. So it's trapping that waste, can be removed from the body. FiberSmart is flax-based, so it's a defatted flax fiber, so it's not going to go rancid because flax is so high in omega-3 fatty acids, wonderfully anti-inflammatory. We do want flax oil in our system, but if we put it in a jar like this, it's going to go rancid and ruin the whole product. So take out the oil. People can take that separately. This is just that fiber supplement. You're going to get the soluble and the insoluble, and again, help move things through. A few herbs in there to help. Marshmallow root, slippery elm bark. They're really soothing. I kind of think of them like putting aloe on a sunburn. They're just there to help really gently calm and heal the digestive tract as we keep it moving through. Easy to mix into anything. You can throw it in smoothies, put it in yogurt, add it to cereal, sprinkle it on salads, sprinkle it on roasted vegetables, however you want to do it. Easy to fit into your diet. And now, probiotics have become such a buzzword for the last 20 years or so as we've learned more about them and how essential they are. Now we're hearing a lot more about leaky gut and inflammation and damaged systems. And so we just want to point out that there is a product that can help with that. Our gut barrier, as I said, we're vulnerable. This is where we concentrate our immune systems there because we've got one very thin membrane between the outside environment and our inside personal invested interest stuff. So our intestinal barrier is maintained by immune cells. It chooses what is allowed into the body. Some antigens are transported across the epithelium. That will initiate an immune response. Sometimes we're doing that on purpose, bringing in food particles. The body doesn't like that. We know down the road, okay, we can't eat that again. There are dendritic cells. So we have like the lining of our intestines. Dendritic cells are, they kind of hover the edge, but they sample. They're picking up bits of information, they're nerve cells, and then they send that information up into the enteric nervous system. So they're found in the intestinal wall and they're monitoring the microbiome, looking for bad guys. Is there salmonella there? Is there campylobacter? Let's keep an eye open for those. And then talking to our T and B cells, which are immune system cells, to promote that immune homeostasis. Hey guys, we need more help here, or actually everything's okay right now. It's looking around at sampling. So we want to have that healthy gut lining as an important part of strong immune health. So here we have a nice, solid digestive tract. These individual cells are a united front. They're all snug shoulder to shoulder with the cell next to them. They've got this nice tight junctions between them. Everything is, no one's going to get through us. Shield wall, can't penetrate. We have the pathogens and foods and other things out here in the intestinal tract. That's okay. They're going to stay there. We have our bloodstream that's going to let things through into the rest of our body. Here's where we have leaky gut. So instead of having this nice tight membrane that food and debris and particles can't get through, we've got inflammation. So think about any time you've sprained your ankle or twisted your arm, you start seeing that redness and that heat, it gets puffy, the cells move apart so that white blood cells can fit through. When we start seeing that space, that permeability, that's when things get leaky because now bigger chunks can pass through. Instead of allowing just one amino acid or one amino acid holding hands with another one, a dipeptide, now bigger peptides can get through. We can get bigger protein chains passing through because the wall has been compromised. So you have these faulty tight junctions and microorganisms and toxins are able to pass through, and we're going to see inflammation and an abnormal immune reaction in the system. And that inflammation can show up, oh, my feet and ankles really hurt when I walk, or I'm constantly tight in the neck. It doesn't matter how many massages I go for, how much, support I get for that. And it's always in pain, headaches all the time. So we get that inflammation showing up elsewhere, which is where we come to Intestinue. And I've used each of these products or each of these ingredients individually and loved finding them all together in one product. For digestive health, many people are familiar with glutamine. It's an amino acid that, our brain eats sugar, our muscles will eat carbs or proteins or fats. They can break down anything for energy. Our intestinal cells like glutamine. That is their preferred fuel. That's going to help them to grow and multiply and be strong and healthy and operate their best. Glutamine, so we need this to support our gut. 5 grams, 5,000 milligrams is a pretty significant dose. That's usually what you're going to find in most scoops of an isolated glutamine powder. To then add in 200 milligrams of N-acetylglucosamine, also known as NAG, this I think of as like, you've got a brick wall and it's starting to fall apart. NAG to me is like, it's the mortar. It's the stuff you're going to smear on it to help fill in the chinks and keep those bricks glued together. It's helping to fix those tight junctions. Warning though, it does come from shellfish. So if someone has a shellfish allergy or if they're vegan, this is not a product that's appropriate for them. Also contains ginger root. So we're soothing indigestion, we're helping motility, keep everything moving downwards. So really therapeutic strength. 1 scoop a day is ample to help start supporting the healthy intestinal lining. So quickly, we want to keep our immune system strong. That means keeping our digestive tract strong. It means keeping our stress managed. Bring that all together here. We need sleep. Any parent of a newborn child knows that there is no substitute for sleep. You can't just have an extra cup of coffee or a bigger breakfast or meditate your way through it. You need sleep. So aiming for 7 to 9 hours a night, maybe 7 in the summer, 9 in the winter. There's a reason things are darker. Minimizing sugar, particularly if you're feeling under threat. Oh, I'm already fighting something off. People in my household are sick. We got to keep that down. So for most people, I'm setting a cap of aim for no more than 25 grams of sugar a day and aim for no less than 25 grams of fiber a day. And that'll help to modulate your blood sugar as well. Prebiotics, we need to feed the bacteria in our system. And that means consuming fiber, ideally from a variety of plant sources. So variety is the spice of life. Probiotics, they work directly with our immune cells. They help to shift our T helper cell balance. That's sort of talking about allergy response and autoimmune conditions. They also can help protect us against potentially pathogenic organisms. So we want to take them on a regular basis to help support healthy gut flora. And then stress reduction. It's amazing. I prescribe meditation, I think, to every patient. I ask every patient what they do for meditation, mindfulness, if they have a prayer routine, what are they doing for their stress management? I ask every patient what their stresses are and how they cope with stress. It's an important piece of being able to treat them effectively. We need to manage it. There's always going to be stress. So what do we do? Are we going to go for a walk? Are you going to take a bubble bath? Are you going to call a friend? What do you do? Meditation is free. Everyone finds it hard, so that's not an excuse. Lots of good supports out there, various apps and YouTube programs, and you can find things. But high stress situations that get that fight or flight response, we're going to see a quick support to the immune system if we come back down to baseline. If it continues, we throw off our inflammatory response, we suppress our white blood cells, we're going to have long-term impacts on mood, which then in turn can affect sleep, can make us want to eat more sugar, not eat the salads, forget to take our supplements. So we have to work on our stress management, however that may be for you. Why choose Renew Life? They have award-winning products since 2003. Again, that's been 98 Alive awards. So about 5 to 6 every year. They do quality testing on all of their products. The finished product is created that outlines all the testing requirements for that formulation. They stand behind their products. So you've got a quality and efficacy. You can try anything for 60 days. If you don't feel the change, bring it back. So 60-day money back guarantee, but you call them directly. Feel the Renew Life difference. You've got, again, the money back guarantee, strain transparency. They tell you exactly which strain, not just, we've got some Lactobacillus acidophilus. We have this Lactobacillus acidophilus. And there's reason why we put that one in there. They have potency through to expiration and then multiple diverse strains. So I believe, and Renew Life believes, that the human body wants to be in homeostasis. That's balance. Balance does not mean not changing. It's like standing on one foot. You're going to wiggle and twitch a little bit, but we're staying steady. The body wants to be healthy. If we support our body with the right nutrients, so a good solid diet, drink enough water, get enough exercise or activity, movement, dance, whatever, take the supplements that we need, rest and play. There has to be laughter and joy as well. And then our body will keep us safe. So we look after the body looks after us. We look after our microbiome looks after us. We've got to be part of this community on our planet. So thank you again for joining me. I'm coming in at just under an hour. I hope there are questions. Thank you so much. I hope you learned something tonight. And let's see if there's any questions, Darcy.
Okay, thanks so much, Miranda. That was great. I'm just going to have a little peek at our chat here and see if we have some questions. I have a question I could ask you, perhaps. Is there someone that shouldn't be taking probiotics? Can they be dangerous for anybody, or can you take too many probiotics?
Yes to both. And then there's probiotics, obviously, that didn't make it into this presentation. I treat a lot of SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So for people who have, the small intestine should be relatively sterile. We've taken in our food, our probiotics, goes through the stomach. We've got an acid environment that should be killing off a lot of bacteria in our food, hopefully the bad guys. Because of that, the small intestine should be relatively sterile. So we saw in that picture, it's not completely sterile, but we can see the individual villi. Then we make it through to the large intestine where there should be trillions of the darn things. If there's an overgrowth, if we can no longer see those absorptive finger-like projections because there's so much bacteria on top, we're going to impair our ability to get nutrients. It can have ripple effects into immune system, into anxiety and depression and insomnia, into pain management, all that sort of stuff. So for those people, we pull back on the probiotic bacteria and look more at probiotic yeast. So Renew Life does have a Saccharomyces boulardii, which I use a lot in SIBO patients. So it's still a probiotic, but I'm not doing a probiotic bacteria. But that I think was just a little bit more advanced than the scope of this talk. But some people I'm pulling off of bacterial probiotics for a time, heal up the intestinal tract, and then we'll start introducing them again.
Okay. So if we have ongoing pain or digestive discomfort, it's probably a good reason to get it investigated rather than just keep self-medicating. Like some things you can try, but at some point you just may find out, get some professional help to see what it is.
You aim before you fire.
Right.
But I mean, it can't hurt. If you have a long history of antibiotics or you're on antibiotics, a probiotic is a really great thing to try. But people who take a probiotic and like, ooh, it made me worse, that's a big clue that there might be some overgrowth. Okay. In which case we just need to restore function. It's everything's treatable.
And off you go. I know that when I'm in the store talking to people about nutrition, I take a probiotic daily. My husband's, he's hit and miss a couple times a week. Some people tell me, oh, I just want to eat probiotic rich food, which I think is great. I guess sometimes I wonder if we can get enough sauerkraut, miso, if it's not heated too hot, tempeh, things like that, maybe kefir. Can you comment on can you balance real like whole food probiotics with perhaps a supplement, or how do you manage that in your family perhaps?
I let the digestive tract tell me what's going on.
Okay, right? Interesting.
Right? If there's constipation or diarrhea, we have to do something.
Right.
If you're having 1 to 3 bowel movements every day, medium brown, half sink, half swim, shaped like a banana, holding together. And, like if you've got the perfect poops on a consistent basis, then you're probably doing just fine, bringing cultured foods into your diet, getting a good variety and you generally know like, oh, things went off the rails, but I got some bad news at work or, watched the news last night. So you get some ideas, or I ate that at that place that I probably shouldn't have eaten at. But if your digestion is not nice, rhythmic, comfortable, non-issue, then we need to investigate. And you might need to change your diet. You might need to work on detox. We might need to bring in a probiotic. We might need to bring in some antimicrobials and address a yeast overgrowth, right? That's also where, Renew Life's kits are so handy. They've got a parasite kit and a candida kit. And like, we might need to be killing things off. We might need to be building things up. Either way, something's out of balance and your body is telling you that. Right.
The poop, the almighty Bristol poop chart.
Yeah, I love it. I show all my patients, right? I pull it up.
I know my friends are like, oh no, she's talking about poop again. I know it's one of those things we all love, but there you have it. And I guess finally, we don't have any other questions right now. So I think you've answered a lot of questions throughout the presentation, but if you had to pick one evil that can really be bad for your microbiome, what would you choose? Would you choose sugar is the worst thing, or maybe alcohol is the worst thing?
I think constant snacking is the worst thing.
Interesting. And why would that be?
Because I treat so much SIBO, the small intestine bacterial overgrowth. We need to have space between our meals. So when we're actively digesting, we're breaking things down and bringing in those nutrients, then that's what that body is doing. It is switched on to absorb nutrients from the food. When we've stopped doing that and time passes, nothing else is happening, just having water, then we get to a place where the brain is like, okay, well, let's start cleaning house and making space for the next. But we need at least an hour or 90 minutes to pass by before we start getting that signal from the brain. And then we'll get little muscular contractions that increase in intensity over time and like squeeze out that small intestine, move all the food debris, the fiber, any bacteria that's left behind, sweeps all into the large intestine, closes the door at the ileocecal valve. And now we've got a nice, pristine environment to absorb nutrients again. So I think a lot of our digestive issues are like, oh, I feel a little bit peckish, I should eat something, as opposed to like, maybe we can wait. It's okay to be hungry. And if you're hangry, then we need to talk about blood sugar balance. so that you can just go those long periods of time. Like, so 3 meals a day with no snacks is a common goal. For some people, it's trickier than others. If they get heartburn or proton pump inhibitors, work with the patients where they're at.
I'm so glad you said that, because the whole grazing thing, like that just led us down the wrong path. And people like me that tend to be a bit of an eater, it just exposes me to more opportunities to overeat as well, notwithstanding the time for our body to rest. But we have another question here.
Okay.
Should you take a probiotic every day, or should you take breaks from them and then restart? And then if you should take a break, how long should the breaks be?
Again, it's going to come down to digestive tract. So in an ideally working system, and we're just taking it as a bit of like your daily multi-insurance, keeping that digestive tract going, every other day is okay. The small intestine sheds its lining about every 24 to 48 hours. So, you've got those villi, there's bacteria attached onto it. As it loses those cells, they're going to be swept away. We want new ones coming in within a day or two. Again, how I might have a different answer depending on 10 different patients in front of me asking me the same question based on how their digestion looks and feels. But for most people, if it's just a good maintenance, then I'd say probiotic every other day is ample. Daily is better for most people. Yeah.
Perfect. Another question: if one takes enzymes, including HCl, does this destroy the probiotic?
It shouldn't. Or you take it, at the same time?
Yeah.
In the same mouthful?
I'm wondering.
It shouldn't. And if it's a Renew Life one, you've got those acid resistant caps that are going to help keep it intact in the intestine, but the bacteria themselves shouldn't be damaged by our enzymes. The enzymes are usually quite specific. They go for the break between this amino acid and that amino acid. They don't just break down everything willy-nilly. They have quite specific targets. I don't think that'll be a problem. HCl, we want to kill off the bad guys in our system, but again, we've got those acid resistant capsules with all the adult Renew Life.
Should be good. Should we take them on an empty stomach? Generally, probiotics.
Generally with food, they need food
generally
too.
With food too. Okay.
Yeah. They want to eat what we're eating, so eat them with the salad, and you're automatically giving them a prebiotic supply that they can start munching on.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, I think that's it for our questions. So
lovely.
I'll say thank you so much for coming, Dr.
Darcy.
Wiley. We really appreciate your information.
My pleasure.
And your contact information is on the site there. So thanks again, and stay safe. And thanks everybody for showing up tonight. And we hope to see you at another seminar soon.